My wife stood in my own lawyer's office and said the words, "He's dead. Just sign it." My business partner, the man I trusted for 18 years, smiled and said, "Finally, the company is ours." Neither of them knew I was standing in the hallway, listening to every single word. What they also didn't know was that I had already suspected this moment was coming for 3 months, and everything that happened after that morning had already been set in motion by me, long before they ever opened that folder. My name is Robert Hale. This is exactly how my wife and my closest friend tried to bury me alive to steal everything I built, and how they buried themselves instead. I started my company from a single rented office 22 years ago. By the time I met Vanessa, I already had a name in this city. She was beautiful, sharp, and charming in a way that made you feel like the only person in the room. We married 11 years ago. I trusted her with everything, my accounts, my will, even the passwords to systems my own board members didn't have access to. My business partner, Derek Ainsley, had been with me since the very beginning. I considered him a brother more than a partner. I want you to remember both of those names, because both of them are the reason everything I built almost disappeared in a single week. About 8 months ago, I started noticing small inconsistencies in quarterly reports Derek handled personally. Nothing dramatic, a transfer here, a consulting fee there, numbers that technically balanced but never quite explained themselves. I mentioned it to Vanessa once, casually, over dinner. She told me I was working too hard, imagining problems that weren't there. I believed her, because why wouldn't I? What I didn't know yet was that she and Derek had already been meeting privately for months, in places far from my office, far from anyone who might recognize them together. 3 months before that morning in the lawyer's office, I had a minor cardiac scare, stress-related, nothing life-threatening. The doctors confirmed it within a week. But I noticed something strange. Vanessa began asking my personal doctor detailed questions about my long-term prognosis in phone calls she thought I couldn't hear. She started speaking to relatives in a tone that sounded less like concern and more like preparation. I began paying closer attention after that. Not out of paranoia. Out of instinct built over 22 years of reading people in boardrooms for a living. It was a Tuesday morning. I had told Vanessa I would be traveling for a supplier meeting and wouldn't be back until evening. The meeting was cancelled without notice, so I came home early, except I didn't go inside right away. Through the study window, I saw Derek's car already parked in our driveway, and I heard voices coming from the direction of my own home office. I walked in quietly through the side entrance instead of the front door. And that is when I heard my wife's voice, calm and businesslike, saying to a man on a video call, "My own family lawyer, he's been unstable for months, the doctors will confirm it, we just need the declaration signed." Derek's voice, right beside her, added, "Once the company transfer clears, none of this will matter anyway." I stood in that hallway for almost 4 full minutes without moving. I did not walk in and confront them. I did not raise my voice. I turned around, left the house the same way I entered, and drove to a small cafe 3 streets away, where I sat for 2 hours deciding exactly what I was going to do next. Here is what most people don't understand about real power: it was never allowed in the first place. Vanessa and Derek believed that if I ever found out, I would explode, make a scene, hire an army of lawyers and scream my innocence to the world. Instead, I did the one thing they never planned for. I said nothing at all, and I let them keep building their plan on a foundation that was about to disappear beneath them. I hired a private investigator that same week, a woman named Officer Reyes, retired from financial crimes, who within 11 days uncovered the full scope of what Vanessa and Derek had built. It was never simply about declaring me mentally unfit. There was a forged medical incapacity report already prepared, a power of attorney document with a signature that matched mine but that I had never written, and a company restructuring plan that would transfer 60% of ownership to Derek and, through a private account, funnel the majority of liquid assets into an offshore account under Vanessa's maiden name. They weren't planning to wait for me to die naturally. They were planning to have me declared legally incapacitated within the month, medicated into compliance through a private wellness facility Derek had already contacted, and quietly take control of everything while I was still, technically, breathing. For the next several weeks, I played my part perfectly. I told Vanessa I felt foggy some mornings. I let Derek see me confused about a meeting date once, deliberately. I gave them exactly the version of me they needed to make their story believable to everyone else. Vanessa began speaking to my sister about arrangements, using a soft, concerned voice that I now recognize as rehearsed. Derek started introducing himself to my senior clients as acting director, testing how easily the company would accept him in my place. Neither of them noticed that every document Derek forwarded to outside investors during those weeks, every private conversation Vanessa had about the offshore account, every message between them discussing how much longer we need to wait, all of it was being quietly collected, dated, and verified by Officer Reyes and my own legal team. Believing my incapacity declaration was only days from being finalized, Derek called an emergency board meeting to present himself as interim CEO. What he did not know was that I still held 61% voting control, and that 2 board members, longtime friends I had personally called the week before, had agreed to attend that meeting on my behalf and record every word of Derek's presentation, including the moment he told the room, "Robert won't be returning to an active role." Nobody forced Derek to say that in front of witnesses. His own confidence, built on a plan he believed was already finished, made the decision for him. Vanessa's mistake was smaller, but far more damaging. She transferred an initial test amount into the offshore account under her maiden name to confirm the account was functional before the larger transfer. Officer Reyes traced that transaction within 48 hours, along with the account's original opening date, 3 months before my cardiac scare had even happened. That single detail changed everything legally. It proved this was never a response to a real medical concern. It was a plan that predated the excuse they built around it. The morning of the incapacity hearing, Vanessa and Derek arrived at my family lawyer's office to finalize the declaration and power of attorney. What they didn't know was that I had already met privately with that same lawyer 4 days earlier, along with Officer Reyes and my legal counsel, and laid out the complete evidence file. Vanessa said the words I opened this story with, "He's dead. Just sign it," meaning, legally, professionally dead, my authority erased. Derek smiled and said the company was finally theirs. And that is when I stepped out of the side office where I had been standing the entire meeting, and set the same folder Officer Reyes had built on the desk in front of them. I did not raise my voice. I placed 3 documents on that desk, one at a time. The forged power of attorney, next to a verified handwriting analysis proving it wasn't mine. The offshore account records, dated months before any medical excuse existed. And the recording from the board meeting, Derek's own voice announcing my removal to a room full of witnesses who were never supposed to be listening that closely. Vanessa went pale before she said a single word. Derek tried to explain, started a sentence 3 separate times, and stopped each time because there was nothing left that the evidence hadn't already said better than he could. I told them both, calmly, that I would not be pursuing every charge available to me, not out of mercy, but because I no longer wanted either of them to occupy one more minute of my time in a courtroom. The board removed Derek within the week. The forged documents alone were enough grounds for full termination and forfeiture of his shares under our partnership agreement, shares that reverted directly back to me. The offshore transfer, still small enough to be fully reversed, was frozen and returned before Vanessa could touch a single dollar of it. Our divorce was finalized within 4 months, under terms that left her with nothing beyond what she had legally entered the marriage with, once the forged power of attorney was entered as evidence. Derek's reputation in this industry did not survive the story once it became public within our professional circle. Vanessa moved out of state. I heard, through mutual acquaintances, that she still tells people I was the one who destroyed her life. I've stopped correcting people who already know better. I never once raised my voice through any of this. I never touched a single asset that wasn't already mine. Everything that happened to Vanessa and Derek happened because of documents they signed, transfers they authorized, and words they said out loud in rooms they assumed were safe. People ask me if I regret staying silent that morning in the hallway instead of confronting them immediately. I tell them the truth, that silence was the most valuable decision of my life. It gave 2 people just enough confidence to build their entire plan out in the open, where I could see every piece of it before they ever thought to hide it. I didn't destroy them. I simply stopped protecting them from what they had already built for themselves.